The days passed in a blur of trials and challenges. Ethan faced off against Korak in a battle of brute strength, using his agility to evade the warrior's powerful blows. He solved complex puzzles that tested his intelligence and creativity, often finding solutions that surprised even Lyra. But it wasn't just about winning. Ethan was determined to prove that humans were more than just fragile creatures. He showed compassion and empathy, traits that seemed foreign to many of the alien competitors. One trial stood out in particular, a test of moral judgment. Ethan was placed in a simulated environment where he had to make difficult ethical decisions, choices that would affect the lives of countless beings. Lyra watched anxiously from the sidelines, her eyes fixed on Ethan as he navigated the complex scenarios. When the trial ended, Ethan emerged exhausted but proud. He had made decisions based on his heart, not just logic, and it had paid off. The crowd, a mix of aliens from various planets, applauded, some in surprise, others in admiration. Lyra approached him, a hint of a smile on her lips. "You are surprising me, Ethan," she said softly. "Your species is capable of so much more than I initially thought." Ethan smiled back, feeling a sense of pride. "We're full of surprises," he replied. But not everyone was pleased with Ethan's progress. Korak, the warrior, sneered at him, his disdain evident. "You may have won this trial," he growled, "but you will not last much longer." Ethan ignored him, focusing instead on the next challenge. He knew that he couldn't let his guard down, not now when Earth's fate hung in the balance. As the tournament progressed, Ethan faced increasingly difficult opponents. He battled a creature that could manipulate reality itself and solved a puzzle that required him to think outside the boundaries of space and time. Through it all, Lyra was there, offering guidance and support. Her actions became more than just duty-bound. She was beginning to care for Ethan, to see him as a friend, perhaps even something more. One evening, as they walked through the alien city, Lyra turned to Ethan with a curious expression. "I have been studying human emotions," she said. "I find them fascinating. This concept of love, for instance, it seems so illogical yet powerful." Ethan smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. "Love is many things," he replied. "It's about connection, about caring for someone more than yourself. It's not always logical, but it's what makes us human." Lyra nodded thoughtfully. "I think I am beginning to understand," she said. "But it is not just about emotions. It is about actions, about showing that you care." Ethan looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. "You're right," he said softly. "Actions speak louder than words." As they continued their walk, Ethan realized that Lyra was not just an alien scientist. She was someone who was learning to feel, to care, and perhaps even to love. The tournament was nearing its end, and Ethan knew that the final challenge would be the most difficult of all. But with Lyra by his side, he felt a sense of hope, a sense that together, they could overcome anything. The days that followed were a blur of intense training and preparation. Ethan found himself pushed to his limits as Lyra guided him through obstacle courses designed for beings far stronger and more agile than humans. Despite the challenges, Ethan refused to give up. He was determined to prove not just his own worth but that of his entire planet. Lyra, too, seemed to be learning from Ethan. She began to show a softer side, her initial cold demeanor slowly giving way to a curiosity about human emotions. Ethan noticed that she would often pause during their training sessions, observing him with an intensity that made him feel both uncomfortable and intrigued. One evening, as they took a break from training, Lyra led Ethan to a large viewing window that overlooked the vast expanse of space. The stars twinkled like diamonds against the blackness, a breathtaking sight that left Ethan speechless. "This is the cosmos," Lyra said, her voice filled with a quiet awe. "A universe full of mysteries and wonders. And yet, my people often forget the beauty in diversity." Ethan turned to her, noticing the hint of sadness in her eyes. "What do you mean?" he asked. Lyra's gaze drifted back to the stars. We Zephyrians have always prided ourselves on our logic and strength. But sometimes, I wonder if we have forgotten the value of compassion and understanding. Ethan felt a pang of empathy for this alien who was beginning to question her own people's ways. I think that's what makes us human, he said softly. Our ability to feel, to love, and to care for one another. Lyra turned to him, her expression thoughtful. I am beginning to see that, she admitted. But it is not just about emotions. It is about connection, about understanding that we are not alone in this vast universe. As they stood there, the silence between them felt almost palpable. Ethan realized that Lyra was not just his trainer but a bridge between two worlds, a symbol of hope for a future where humans and aliens could coexist. The next day, Ethan was introduced to the other competitors in the tournament. There was Korak, a towering figure from a planet known for its brutal warriors, Zephyr, a being made entirely of energy, and several others, each with unique abilities that made them formidable opponents. The tournament began with a series of physical challenges designed to test strength and agility. Ethan struggled at first, his human body no match for the superior physiology of the other contestants. But he refused to give up. Using his knowledge of mechanics and physics, he found ways to outsmart his opponents, often turning their own strengths against them. Lyra watched from the sidelines, her eyes shining with a mixture of surprise and admiration. For the first time, she saw Ethan not just as a human but as a worthy competitor, one who could potentially change the course of the tournament. As the trials progressed, Ethan faced increasingly difficult challenges. He battled creatures that defied explanation, solved complex puzzles, and even engaged in a zero-gravity wrestling match with Zephyr. Through it all, Lyra was there, offering guidance and support, her actions becoming more than just duty-bound. One evening, as Ethan returned to his quarters exhausted, Lyra greeted him with a small vial of glowing liquid. "Drink this," she commanded. "It will help your muscles recover." Ethan hesitated for a moment before downing the contents. The effect was immediate, a tingling warmth spread through his body, easing his pain. "Thanks," he said, looking up at Lyra with gratitude. She smiled slightly, a rare sight. "You are doing better than I expected," she admitted. "Perhaps there is more to your species than I initially thought." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the alien concoction. He realized that Lyra was not just his ally but someone who was beginning to care for him, to see him as more than just a human. As they stood there, the tension between them was palpable. Ethan knew that he had to tread carefully, unsure of how to navigate these new feelings in a world so alien to his own. But for now, he had a tournament to win. And with Lyra by his side, he felt a sense of hope he hadn't felt in days. Ethan Walker was just an ordinary man. A mechanical engineer by trade, he spent his days fixing machines and his nights dreaming of something more. Little did he know that his wish for adventure would become reality in the most unexpected way. One quiet evening, while walking home under the dim glow of streetlights, a brilliant flash lit up the sky. Before he could react, a beam of light engulfed him, pulling him into darkness. When Ethan regained consciousness, he found himself lying on a sleek metallic floor. The air was thick with an unfamiliar hum. As he sat up, blinking against the soft blue glow emanating from the walls, he realized he wasn't on Earth anymore. "Fascinating," came a melodic voice from behind him. Startled, Ethan turned to see an alien figure unlike anything he had ever imagined. She had shimmering silver skin that seemed to ripple like water under light. Her large violet eyes studied him intently. She was tall and graceful, her movements fluid yet precise. Who are you?" Ethan stammered. "I am Lyra," she replied calmly. "A scientist of the Zephyrian race. You are aboard our vessel." Ethan's mind raced. Aliens? Spaceships? It all felt like a fever dream. "Why am I here?" he managed to ask. Lyra tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. You have been selected as Earth's representative in the intergalactic trials, a competition that determines whether your planet deserves continued existence. Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. Wait, what? Deserves existence? What does that even mean? Lyra stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. Every 1,000 cycles, our council evaluates emerging planets. Those deemed unworthy are eliminated. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. Eliminated? You mean destroyed? Correct, she said without emotion. But you have a chance to prove your species' value. As panic set in, Ethan tried to process what was happening. He was just an engineer, not a warrior or diplomat. How could he possibly represent all of humanity? Lyra seemed to sense his turmoil. Your selection was random, she explained. But perhaps there is more to you than meets the eye. Before Ethan could respond, she reached out and placed her hand on his forehead. A strange warmth spread through him as her touch sent shivers down his spine. Why do you shiver when I touch you there? She asked curiously. Ethan flushed red. It's, just a human thing. Lyra raised an eyebrow but said nothing more. Instead, she gestured for him to follow her through a doorway that opened seamlessly into another room. Inside was a vast chamber filled with holographic displays and alien machinery humming softly. Lyra began explaining the trials ahead, tests of strength, intelligence, and adaptability designed to measure humanity's worthiness. Ethan couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. But as he listened to Lyra speak, her voice calm yet commanding, he realized something surprising. She wasn't just studying him, she seemed genuinely intrigued by him. You're different, she said suddenly, breaking his thoughts. What do you mean? Ethan asked cautiously. Your species, Lyra replied thoughtfully. You are fragile compared to most competitors yet possess an unpredictability that intrigues me. Ethan wasn't sure if that was meant as a compliment or an insult. But one thing was clear, if he wanted any chance of saving Earth, he would have to rely on more than just brute strength. As they prepared for the trials ahead, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this journey would test not only his abilities but also challenge everything he thought he knew about humanity, and himself.